Hello everyone and welcome back to Finance at JCL. This show is aimed at new and intermediate level investors. So very pleased to have you with me here today, and I'm going to be discussing gold and silver. Are they an investment? And this is in my green series, which is a series around key investing principles. So this is something I think you need to have in your back pocket as a principle as you go through your investing journey. But specifically, why am I doing this video now? And gold and silver is in the news because they're increasing in price. And in particular, gold is over $2,000 an ounce. So that is, I think, a record price. It's a pretty hot topic. So I thought this is a perfect time to create and deploy this video. Now, the objective therefore for the show is I want to investigate how gold and silver may fit into an investment portfolio, and then the output for that is for you to be able to think, right, I'm wondering whether I should buy it or not. I can make an informed decision about it. So that is what I want to achieve by this show. So 5 key points here. Now, gold and silver don't actually produce any cash flow. So you buy, let's say you bought an ounce of gold, it sits there, you look at it, you admire it, looks stunning, you feel good about yourself, but it doesn't actually produce anything, it just sits there. And 20 years later, it's the same 1 ounce piece of gold, it just sits there. So there's no kind of output from it. The way that differs to individual companies is that if you buy a company which had, let's say, £1 million, that company could use that money, create products, sell, make profit, reinvest into the business and grow. So 10 or 20 years later, you would have potentially something entirely different of greater value, although it could go the other way. Whereas the item of gold, the ounce of gold, would just sit there and not have changed at all. And why that's important is that if you have very specific long-term investment objectives like I do, you can't really value what return you'll get from your gold and silver because it, as I say, it just sits there, it doesn't produce any return. So you're effectively trying to guess what the spot price will be, and there's no real accurate way of doing that. Having said that, although it doesn't produce it is used in industry, so there are uses for it, not just in industry but also commercially, so jewellery, for example. Now, the whole principle of buying gold and silver is it's kind of speculative in nature because you're effectively reliant on someone else paying more for it in the future than you have in the past to actually make any money off it. And that is entirely out of your control, and there's no accurate way of regularly predicting what will happen with that. But having said that, gold and silver is a store of value in some circumstances. So it can protect you against inflationary changes, for example. And if the stock market's falling, then actually gold and silver could be a buffer to that. So those are the key principles that I look at when I'm trying to evaluate gold and silver. So what that means is for me, and I think this is a view shared by some value investors, is that gold and silver is not an investment. Now, it's not to say you shouldn't buy it, but it's not an investment. It's more of a speculative or a defensive purchase. As an example, as you'll see from my recent portfolio review, I do allow up to 5% of my own portfolio to be speculative in nature. So actually, I have purchased some silver, and I haven't purchased that as an investment. I've purchased it to speculate because I think it's going to go up. Now, that is not investing. I'm very clear on that, which is why I reduce it to a very small proportion of my portfolio. But I bought that at around about April time, and it has gone up by 60% since then. So I'm thinking about kind of chopping that in soon so that I can cash in on that speculation that I've participated in. And I can use that to buy some companies for long-term investments. So just to summarise, I suppose, in the long term, index investing or company investing, generally speaking, will have a higher potential because The companies can innovate, produce, invest, and you can compound with the returns of the companies, where you cannot do that with gold and silver. So I think what I'm trying to say is, in the very long term, yes, you make more money probably from an index than gold and silver, and furthermore, even beyond that, if you buy individual company shares, if you have the tools at your disposal to evaluate them, and you have the right objectives, you'll probably make the best kind of long-term high returns. So, in summary, metals, and I'm talking about gold and silver here because they've been in the news, but things like palladium and platinum also come into these kind of commodities that people may invest in as an alternative purchases. They're not an investment for me. It's speculation, and that's not to say you shouldn't do it, but just be aware of that difference. But it can play a part in a portfolio. So as an example, if one is close to retirement and you want to see less up and down fluctuations in the capital value of your portfolio, you may have an element of gold or silver in them, for example. So if the market drops, generally speaking, if people are really scared the market drops a lot, gold and silver prices go up a bit. So it will kind of reduce the drop. However, it does have the opposite effect, whereby people are very confident the market's flying up. Quite often gold and silver will drop a bit. So it kind of trims your gains and it trims your losses. On average, it will probably stabilise your portfolio compared to if you didn't have it. So if you're getting to a point where you know you're going to need to take some money out, I think there's an option there. But do make sure you review that in light of your own individual circumstances. So don't take that as a blanket piece of advice from me. Do look at it carefully for yourself. I think the crux of the matter is you're not going to get rich in the long term from holding gold and silver. It may work out for you, you could well make profit, but you're much more likely to get rich from investing in indices or indeed individual companies. So thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you found this discussion very useful and it helps you develop your investment portfolio and your investing approach. And I'd really appreciate it if you did find this useful, if you hit the like button, and that will help promote my video across YouTube. And if you want to hear more as I build my roadmap for new and intermediate level investors, do hit that subscribe button with the notification bell and you'll be informed as and when I post new shows. So in closing, I'd like to thank you for joining me and I look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers.